for calling me the man in charge. I will be using that as my title going forward.
You are.
So hi, I am actually my official title is Technical Director of the HPC facility at the Cyprus Institute. A mouthful, man in charge, actually I like better. So today I thought a lot about what we should be doing. So this is not something that we have tried before, to have like a hands-on online session with close to 50 people. Hopefully everybody will join. That's about how many people we had. So I didn't exactly know how much material to prepare. I sometimes think it's going to be too little, but more likely it's going to be way more than we can handle in 3 hours. Given that this is also a large group and large groups move slower, so I guess we'll wing it, right? We'll see how it goes. If we need to go over more material, I'd like to have polls later on to see what you'd like to see. And, let's take it from there. So let me share my screen first.
Let me, sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Let me interrupt you a bit, George. Sorry, we sent out feedback forms yesterday and we'll do so today. And it's important if you can please fill them in honestly and tell us what you would like for us to repeat for you. And we'll do that. We'll do our best to do that. And we won't do it through a training event. We'll probably do it in an afternoon. It'll probably be a 1 or 2 hour session. And we'll repeat that for the various subjects over various weeks. So it won't be a full day thing, as we will have commitments at work and at studies and so on. So this will just be 1 or 2 hours every so often, just to cover the material that people need.
Cool. So I'd like also everybody to feel free to interrupt. Again, my Zoom experience is not the biggest, but I guess people will be paying attention to the chat for raised hands. Actually, I wouldn't even mind people unmuting themselves and just asking, but I don't know how people are going to collide. So well, actually, why don't we do that? If it gets too messy, we can, take a step back. So yeah, let me get right on it and minimize a few things here. Where should we start? Let's share this screen. Can somebody enable my screen sharing? Host, please.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, you logged out and now you should be. Now you should be able to.
Cool. Nice. So everybody can see my, that's weird. I'm getting a weird border around my screen.
Yeah, we can.
Cool. Can you see just the window or do you see a small border around it?
Small border.
No, okay, never mind. It should be okay. It was a quick crash. So this is my SSH terminal. This is where we're going to live for about 3 hours today. And this is where, this is how you access our systems. Our tool is SSH. And I have, asked everybody to join Slack. And if you go into the Slack channel, and you'll see in the HPC beginners training channel, like halfway through the screen on the left, you can see a poll. I already see a few entries there. Can you please fill that in? And I'll give everybody a couple of minutes to do that.
George.
Yes.
You sent us an email with the SSH link to input. Would you like us to?
To join up there?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Hopefully we'll be able to follow along. I know that we haven't really done this remotely. Usually our events, we have done events at the Cyprus Institute with 40, maybe 40, 50 people. And we also had 4 or 5 people going around helping around with the terminals and the tutorial. We haven't tried this remotely. We have a few people around, as you saw from yesterday, and people that actually work, colleagues here at the facility that can help. They're in the chat. If you have any question, you can ask in Slack, preferably. And somebody will, try and help you out. Although I'd rather you pay attention to the main course and maybe stay around later to fix things. So can I have a raise of hands of who was not able to actually connect to the system at all? That tried and was not able to. So Mihai, okay, let's a couple more. Participants, okay. So Mihai and Andreas, I hope I'm saying that right. And George. So why don't you send an email to hpc.support. The email would be hpc.support@cyi.ac.cy. And then they should be able to help you with your connection. Make sure you send them your public key. Instructions for that were in an email I sent to all of you. So let's get started. I see a lot of people. Actually, it's nice to see that we have 9 people using like SSH from Linux. That's going to be actually the easiest for them. We have a few people on Mac, which will make little difference to them. Windows 10 SSH has 3 people and a PuTTY with 6. I'm going to say, we also have people using VS Code directly, which is going to be cool if we have time at the end of the session, maybe the afternoon session. We can quickly go over how you can use VS Code to connect. It's a bit more involved getting that to connect through Windows, but let's worry about that later. So let me log out. So connecting to the system is actually pretty simple. All you do is type SSH and then your username. And my username for this session will be edu. This is actually the first event in 2021, so we called it 11, and that's my username, and I'm going to connect to the head node of the cluster, otherwise known as the login node of the cluster. Cyclone at hpcf.cyi.ac.cy. This is actually an alias to one of the 2 front-end nodes that we have. Okay, that's why when you log in, you're actually taken to front node 01. Front node, head node, login node, pretty much all interchangeable. You will be greeted with the messages of the day, which also goes over how some environment variables you can use and some warnings. For example, we don't really take backups of the system in any regular manner. We can't. The system literally has, at this point, sorry about that. What is it? We are at 2.6 petabytes, and we are adding another petabyte. This there are a few people in the waiting room. Oh, okay, there you go. So backing that up, it's not easy. So let's get started. One of the first things you can do is, well, we're going to see how we can move around in the system. I have a couple of slides that I'd like to show. And these are going to be the quickest slides ever. So let's do watch. Let's do slide 1. So the title in the tutorial is actually kind of misleading. I'm not going to be talking about Linux per se. So that's what we left it in there, so most people would understand what we were getting at, but it's not really Linux. Linux is the usual kernel used in open source operating systems. So what we are going to be talking about is the shell. Namely, we're going to be using, going over the bash shell. Some of that. We'll be covering about, I don't know, 5% of bash, probably not even that. So a shell is basically a command interpreter. You type in commands and you get output. These commands are mostly, other executables. Some of those commands are built-in commands, and we'll go into that a bit more. Then you can put a lot of those commands one after the other with some logic into a script, which will be executed by a shell. And the main reason for that is to automate tasks. We are not using the shell to do computations or simulations. The bash shell is there to pull everything together. I mean, we can do loops and all that, but you won't be using that to actually, let me do it another way. So there are many types of shells. I'm not going to go really into all of what they are. There's a general, what's called the born again shell family, or born again shell is the one that we are will be using. There's a C shell type family of shells. There are many others, and you're probably aware of some if you've been using Windows. Like the command prompt is some sort of a shell. Not the best one, but so as I mentioned earlier, the commands we will be going over are, fall into categories: the bash built-ins, and there's not that many of them, right? There quite a few, quite just a small number of them, but there's a vast number of other executables that people use generally from the command line. These are some of the things that, let me see, I'm going to go over all of these. Yeah, I guess most of these. Maybe background and foreground, if we get time. So next, that's it. That's it for my initial set of slides. So let's get right to it. Let me put a link in Slack. too many windows, way too many windows. So that's our, let's say, user guide, which we are in the process of updating. And we'll have a new version out in the next couple of weeks. That can guide you through some of these, what I'm going to go over. And it also gives you an overview of how you can connect to the systems, how we can transfer data, which I haven't made my main thing today. But again, if we get time, we can go over transferring data to and from the system. So let's get right to the commands. It's customary to start with a hello world program, and this is going to be quick, right? I'm done. This is a hello world program for a bash shell. All it says is echo, as in put in the standard output what I have next. Please note the single quotes. If you don't use single quotes there, it will mess you up, and I will explain why later on. Just to, because I don't get any like feedback from people, can we get a raise of hands on who was actually able to execute this in their terminal? Nice. Cool. I guess the raise hands timeout, how does that work? Or you raise your hand and you have to lower it again?
I think it remains up until they
Okay,
put
cool.
it down.
Anyway, thanks a lot. So we have a few people following around. This is going to be much more interesting. So let's start by showing the contents of our home directory. That's it. First command, ls. Actually, first command will be echo, but anyway. Let me remove hi for a second. So ls means show me the contents of the directory that I am currently in. Right now, I'm in my home directory. I can also list the contents of another directory. So let me list the directories under just a random directory. So I can list the contents of the directory that I'm in or another directory. Please note that you may have seen me like type really quickly. That's not me typing quickly. That's auto completion from bash tab auto completion. So if I have part of a name and I tab or double tab, that means I press tab on my keyboard twice. It gives you a quick auto completion option. So if I keep typing more, auto completion will eventually get to the one that I am looking for. And then I just hit enter and I get the output. This is going to be boring for some people that have used the terminal extensively, but please bear with me. So we can do more with showing the lists. Let's look at, so if I want more details about the contents of this directory, let's get back to my, so this was just show me the list of the contents of the current directory. If I just say ls minus L is for long, that's going to give me the more details. We'll worry about this later, and also what this means. You can see that I only have one directory in my home directory, which is not true, in that there are more things in there, and that it's not even really a directory, it's a link to a directory. But I can see all of my files, all the files that are in my directory, if I do ls-l and a for all, that is going to show me all of what we generally in Linux consider hidden files or directories. A file name with a dot at the beginning is assumed to be like a hidden file, and that's in air quotes, right? We don't have really hidden files. We just have files that start with a dot. And by default, ls chooses, there's nothing special about those files, right? There's nothing in their metadata or anything like that. Just ls chooses not to display them if you don't specify -a, like here. So what next? Let's create a directory. Say I want a directory to organize my data. I'm going to say make dir, make directory, and I'm just going to call it my underscore dir. And if I do an ls-l again, you can see my directory there. So another command is pwd, which stands for print working directory. If you are lost, you type pwd and the system will let you know where you are. So currently I'm in my home directory. If I go to my dir on pwd, you'll see that pwd now gives me, you'll say, okay, why is that interesting? Well, it is interesting because in many cases, you're running in a script. You want to know exactly where you are. More on this later, hopefully. The next, I already used one command without explaining, is cd. Okay, cd means change directory. And if I type cd without any parameters, it will take me to my home directory. If I type cd tilde, tilde is that squiggly line. It can be found on the top left of your keyboard underneath the escape key, I guess. This actually tilde stands for your home directory. So if I type cd tilde, again, will take me to my home directory. This did nothing because I'm already there. This is also equivalent to saying cd $home, and that's using a bash variable called home, which again has the path to your home directory. This is all the same. So all of the three commands above are equivalent. One of the next things that first we're going to talk about like file management. So one of the things we want to do in many cases is actually copy files. CP stands for copy. And let's copy a file from, by the way, I've created a link in all of your directories, I created a link called tutorial data, and that points to a bunch of files that we'll be using for the tutorial. You should not be able to write or modify files in that tutorial data directory. You can delete the link if you want, but then you'll have to go and type that whole thing every time. And generally, we'll be copying files from that tutorial data directory into your home directory so that you can edit them and work with them. And that's how you'll be able to do some of the exercises as well. So just give me a second, please.
George, somebody asked
Yes.
what the tilde stands for.
Tilde is the contents of your home directory. So if I do this, that's what you get. It's almost like a built-in variable. So cool. Let's copy a file from that tutorial data into my home directory. This is how I would do it. CP takes 2 arguments. First argument is the source, and the second argument is the target. The second argument can be the name of, the exact name of a file or a directory, in which case what you specify as the first argument will go into the second argument directory. If the first argument is a directory, so you want to copy a full directory, then you need to specify a recursive copy, which is with a -r. We don't need that now. We just need to copy one file. That's it. And if we list our current directory, we can see there's a file there called grades.csv. Generally, we can even most Linux distributions have what is called the file command, which will give you some information about what the system knows about that file, which is usually not that much, but it's sometimes it's sometimes interesting in many cases, because you can tell, for example, with executables, what kind of files there are. So the system just recognizes that this is ASCII text. It's not that useful, but when you're troubleshooting, sometimes that could be interesting. Anyway, so generally commands are, let's say, delimited by or separated by a new line. For example, I can say cd and then ls, but I can also separate commands by using a semicolon. So if I do cd and then ls, it will execute one command after the other. These are also equivalent. So we are down to exercise number 1. So let's see what exercise number 1 is. I'd like to actually switch. No, let's do this. Yeah, I think.
So George Panagiotis
Yes.
asks, what does recursive copying mean?
Let me do this and I'll get right on that answer. So this is your first exercise. Let me, put it somewhere else. Actually, let's do this. Just gonna disconnect. Oh, I shouldn't have made it full screen. I don't know. Is my are you generally can you generally read when I'm typing, or am I going too fast, too slow, too whatever? Let me try and tidy this up so you can see the slide, and I can also show you things at the same time. let's do this. This is your exercise 1, and Panayota asked, what is, can you remind me, please?
So what does recursive copying mean?
Recursive copy means just copy the whole directory. It means descent into the directory that I am specifying. I don't know.
We have another question.
Yes.
Sorry, go on. We have another question from Markella. What cat, the cat command is for?
Actually, I'm going to show you that later. Sometimes I'll invoke other commands trying to show you things. Cat means, I came from originally catalog. It's basically read whatever I give you as an argument. That's not entirely true. So a lot of the, just a side note, many of my answers will not be entirely precise, but are meant to just convey the main message, right? So cat will actually read the file that you provide and output it to the standard output. So I already, quite a few people already managed to complete the first exercise. That's nice to see. Let's keep them coming. Any other questions while we wait? I'd like to give a few minutes to people to complete the exercise.
So can you specify what the touch command means?
Yes. What? Sorry, you realize that this is not very well rehearsed. So touch commands, touch command, which is supposed to come, should have been explained before the first exercise, means create an empty file that I specify. Actually, Panayota, first exercise is, if you see my share screen, the top right, that's exercise 1. You can find more, these slides, I want to call them, whatever. They're just text files in your home directory, slides, and you'll see all of those. So this is your exercise. So I think enough people actually already completed.
George, can you tell everyone how you split your screen like this so they could do it if they
I am sorry, that is dark magic, and you cannot know that. I am using what is called a Tmux, TMUX. I don't know what you call it. In the past, people used to use a command called screen. Now, what this does, I seriously encourage you to look it up and use it. I was planning to put it up for a vote later on in the session, actually towards maybe the afternoon session, as to what types of things you'd like me to go over. I am not an expert, but I know enough just to help people get started. So these Tmux thing allows one of the things that it does is just what you saw, right? I can have multiple windows open. I can move between them like I'm doing now. Or I can even have whole new windows, and I can work on something, and I can exit back, and I'm back to my main window. There are many things you can do. There are, I mean, you can open a terminal to 10 different servers and type synchronized commands. The other thing that it does is it keeps your session open. So say I'm on my laptop, I'm working, I'm doing my simulation, I'm processing my data, whatever. I can even just completely disconnect from. I'm not gonna exit because I'm gonna lose my screen sharing. But I can connect from a different PC. Let's say I'm connected from a different PC now, and I just say tmax attach A, or A stands for attach, and I'm back to where I started. We actually use this to even share sessions because more than one person can be connected, and they all share the same screen. Pretty neat stuff. It takes a bit of getting used to because you need to remember a few key codes for moving along because it's all based on keyboard, no mouse is involved. So yeah, I think I should be moving rather, a bit faster, right? So let's, cool. I see that several people already completed the exercise. That's good enough, I guess. So yeah. I don't want to keep switching. I can even make my screen full size like this. And those other windows are still around. Cool. So next, let's look at editing files. To edit the file, again, I'm not going to go too much into this because there are many ways of doing this. This is a matter of preference. Now, watch command that I'm running right now is just to show you something. It's not that important. It means run the following command, keep running the following command and giving me the output. Don't worry about it too much. It's not meant to be explained here. So we have a few editors that we can use. There are literally hundreds. I'm sure you've all used one. I'm a VI user. I used to be an Emacs user, but then I just stopped for some reason, no particular reason. I generally use VI. I propose if you haven't used basically an editor before, just start with Nano. Because it has clear, directions on screen on how you do things. Micro is also interesting. I added it to the system for you guys a few days ago. So let's start by editing a file, and just say nano names.txt. And then if you have access to, then I can just simply type something, just type in my name. And then I can say, just gonna hit Control X. It's gonna ask me to save, and I'm gonna say yes. And that's it. I'm really not gonna go into how you edit files. But I've already prepared a file for you to, it's already ready made. So this name.txt file can be found in, so I'm going to copy it from tutorials or from my home directory, tutorial data, names.txt. I'm just going to copy it to my home directory. You can see that it's here. So the next thing I'm going to be talking about is pipes, command pipes. This is basically what's going to change your life in a Linux environment or in a shell, sorry, environment.
George, how can we exit the nano?
If you, what do you see on the top bottom of your, sorry, on the bottom left of your screen? Do you see an X? Have you tried using Control X?
Nope, it got stuck.
Maybe it is stuck. Maybe get somebody from, maybe ask the question in Slack and somebody can attend to you.
Aha, okay, enter worked, okay, sorry.
Excellent, nice,
George.
nice. Yes.
So when you copied the names.txt, I saw the way you did it. You put the squiggly line in front of the tutorial data, in front of the like directory path, and then you
Yes.
put another full stop after the file. Does that full stop show it to? Does it tell it to copy it to the home?
Thanks for bringing that up. Yes, and that was my bad. I should have explained it. You know, some of the things are so, you know, we do this every day for the last 25 years that we kind of assume that they're. There are two special files. Let's do ls-l. There are two There are two special entries in every directory listing. Okay, they're not real entries, right? This is a reference to the current directory where I am right now. Current directory, this is what pwd says, right? This is the single dot. The two dots are the parent directory. So if I say echo dot, sorry, that doesn't work like that. If I just say ls, it's the same as this. Now, I can also list my parent directory, go one back. So let me give you an example. I can go into the tutorial data is a directory. If I go into this tutorial data directory, I double tab and I go into slides. No, not slides. Now I am in that directory. If I cd one directory back, I'm in the previous one. If I cd, let's go back into slides. I can even do this. Go back one, go another one back. So I'm going two directories back. This is actually also very useful when you're automating things and scripts. Let me quickly go over pipes and output redirection, and then we'll go into exercise 2, in which case we should take a quick break. And I'm way behind in what I want to say. Okay, let's. So we copied a file called names.txt. There you go. We can get more information out of that. If I say cat, and somebody asked me this before, it means take whatever I have, whatever I provide as arguments, and I can have more than one files here, and then put it on standard output. You notice that I am saying standard output and not just put it on the screen, right? In this case, my terminal is actually the standard output, but that doesn't have to be the case. Let me just bring up another command and I'll get back to this right now. There is a command called WC, and that's not what it stands for. It stands for word count, okay? So you can, by the way, side note again, you can say what is, sorry, without a space. And then we'll give you a quick, like the single line description of what it does. So the WC command this one prints new line, word, and byte counts for each file. So if I give it a file, it will give me how many new lines, actually how many lines, actually how many new lines, but this is equivalent to how many lines, how many words, and how many bytes are in that file. So let's get back to, we said cat names. By the way, you see that I'm using you don't see, but I am using the up and down arrow keys on my keyboard to scroll between commands. It really allows you to repeat commands which you typed just before. That's really, really quick. So I can, let's say, output the names.txt file. And I want to pass that into my next command. So I'm using this pipe command. So I'm going to pipe it into WC. And that's the output. I get 11 lines, 22 words, 155 characters. But I'm not really interested in the number of words or the number of characters. Just give me the number of lines. And that's 11. You can daisy chain. You can daisy chain these pipelines. I'm sorry, I'm just accepting people that keep going. That's why you get this pause every now and then.
What is this pipeline doing exactly? Sorry.
Yes. So a pipe, this is that vertical, line on your keyboard. It means take the output of the command on the left and put it as input to the command on the right. Would you like me to go into more detail? The commands, as I mentioned before, if I let's do it another way. Actually, this brings me to the next, command that I wanted to show you. It's not really a command. It's this idea about redirection. So if I say cat, it will just output the contents of the file to my terminal. But what I can do, I say I don't want it to my terminal, I just put it in a file because I want to process it more. Or this names.txt is like a 2 terabyte file that I don't want to see on my screen anytime, right? So we can just redirect this, the output, you can redirect it by using this greater than symbol, and then we'll put it in another file. So we'll call it names -2.txt. So you see, none of that made it to my screen. In fact, all of that is right now in names.2. I can do something more, simpler than this. Actually, I can say, if I say echo A or whatever, let's put it like this, A, B, C, and I redirect it to test.txt, and I inspect the contents of the file. Now I can inspect the contents of the file by simply saying cat, because I know it's a small file, but that's not very safe, because you could be inspecting like a 1 gigabyte file and you say cat, and suddenly it's you are at home and you're bombarded with 1 gigabyte of data, which is basically going to sometimes lock up your session. So a better way to look at files. It's not cat, of course, but what is called this command called less. You can see it gives me the contents of the file, or it can be, let's do another file. Remember we copied another file earlier. So I can see and I can page up and down in this file. Whatever I have, I should have had a bigger file to test with.
Do we exit
But,
from less?
U plus Q. Again, sorry. These are omissions that are hardwired into my brain.
Can you?
Sometimes I don't even remember them. I just press them. And then when people ask me, how do you do that? I say, I don't know, but you just, anyway. So yes, go ahead.
Also the redirection command. Could you do the same with files? So, or directories to copy context, or
my example wasn't the greatest. Okay, if you want to copy a file, right, you wouldn't be doing it like this. This is a bad way to copy a file, right? If you wanted to copy a file, you would do it like this. So consider that a wrong, not a wrong, but not the best example. That might give the people the wrong idea. My next example is actually going to help you a bit more. And with that, we'll go to exercise 2 and then I guess a break. So
thanks.
What's the best way of doing this? So we were able to count the number of files in this, the number of lines in this names.txt file. Let me introduce you to another command that is used a lot in a shell. It's called grep. Now grep means just show me the matching lines from what I'm going to provide. So if I say, let's cut the file. Actually, so we had, this was the original file. Then I'm going to pass that output into a new command called grep. And let's say I just want all the people in group 1. So I'm going to, grep will go through its input, which is passed like this, and go through every line and print out only the ones that match what I provided here. Because it realizes that it's putting things on the screen, it made them red for me. If you're not putting stuff on the screen, there is no colors involved. So what we can do with this is actually, we can take the output of the previous command again and keep processing it. So if I wanted to know how many lines in that file contain the string group 1, I can simply count the lines that I just outputted. So 7 of those lines contain group 1. Now, if I didn't want to count those lines and I wanted to just put them in a different file, I can say redirect, okay, the output of the grep command into group 1.txt. And what that did is put and that's the output right now. You can see that it only contains group 1. There you go. Something like that.
George,
yes.
Is this grep, is it like the wildcards? Is it sort of like a wildcard?
You can do regular expressions, and that is what you're referring to. There are many types of regular expressions. If you're going for expressions specifically, you're better off using what is called egrep. But that I leave that as an exercise.
Okay.
You can also grep -p if you're looking to use Perl style, like you say, wildcards. They are really regular expressions. Did I see another question? You are getting permission denied when say that is because I had asked you to copy the files that you are working on out of the directory of that tutorial data directory. What you want to do is start with that is because you did this. You went to tutorial data and then you try to process things in here. But, and this is stealing my thunder from later on permissions, but you're not, this directory is not writable by you. This is all owned by user root, including the current directory, which is not writable. But I will go over this later, pretend I didn't show you this. So let's go back to here.
George, shall we first
yes.
do a small break and then?
Let me put up exercise 1, exercise 2, and we are going for a break right now. Let me make sure that you can see it. There you go. So that's it. Let's take a quick break and we'll move. We'll meet back here in 5 minutes. Should we say 10? What do you say?
10 minutes. Let's go
10 minutes.
10 minutes. So 11:15.
So next one is going to be faster. It's 11:16. We should be moving right along. I think we can get through most of the things that I wanted to. Let's see how many people actually managed to do the exercise. At least 9 people attempted it, which is good. At least one person seems, 2 people seem to have completed it. And the others started. That's good. Excellent. So now let's talk more about our shell, okay, our bash session. Our session also contains a set of variables, right? I don't want to call them settings. I want to call them, that's what they are. They're called environment variables. We can get a list of all of our environment variables by just using the env command. Right? Now, that's a lot. Actually, that's not even half of it. I'm going to use a pipe to read the output of that env command.
George, I think we have a question from there is a raised hand by Stelios. Sorry to interrupt. Stelios,
please do interrupt. I'm not watching that. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh no, I just raised my hand to tell you that I completed exercise 2.
Okay.
Good on you. You're probably one of the couple that actually managed to complete it. Excellent. Thanks. These are the contents of my environment variables. I don't want to go into them in detail. I just want to point you to a few of those variables that are going to be very useful for you. Remember our echo command. Echo just outputs whatever you give it, right? It's like the print command. One first variable is called user, right? And that is contains the username that you're currently logged in as. This is the same output as who am I, right? Oh, sorry. Who am I used to work like this? Oh my God. Anyway, live and learn. Another command is home that I briefly mentioned earlier. So home contains your home directory, the path to your home directory. Another interesting command that is very useful, environment variable that is very useful. Echo is path. Now, path is a place, it's a list of directories where your shell will look for executables. Now, what do I mean by that? If you remember, briefly my second or third slide, whatever it was, it said something about bash built-ins and other commands. Of all the commands that we have been looking at, I think just echo and cd are really built-ins. For example, ls is not really a built-in command. It's actually an executable. I know that because I can say which ls, wrong pick. Let's do this. Even the copy command, okay, that I used on several occasions, is not really a part of the shell. It's actually an executable. This is executable. That is actually a file, an executable file. I can even go further and see, remember when we said, this is an executable file, right? So let's get back to path. This is a list of directories where if I just type a command here right now, like cp, like I did, and this is not a built-in command, it needs to basically figure out what are you referring to? What is this cp? Where do I find it? If it's an executable. So if it's in one of these, it will look starting from left to right to see if you can find it. Do you have a file called cp in libexec? No. Is there a file in user local bin called cp? No, there isn't. Is there a file? Let's actually do that. ls/cp. Oop, no such file directory. Let me move on. The next one is user local bin. No file there. The next one is /bin. Oh, there you go. So it will pick up the first one that it found and execute that. That's what happens when you say cp. Now, why am I saying this? This is actually very, very important for the afternoon session, right? Where we will be manipulating these environments to actually use the right type of software that we need. So if I remember our home, so if I was in a different directory, we'll pick up the first one. I have read the question, but I guess that's what you're asking. The question was, what if it finds many? It will pick up the first one, and that is by design, because you can then add things at the beginning of your path if you want to override something without taking away everything else. You will also notice, for example, this directory, right? That's interesting because it's in your home directory. So if you put, remember that hidden directory we talked about, those hidden files and directories start with a dot. That means that is hidden. But anyway, you can put things in slash in your home directory, .local/bin, and then the system can pick them up when you type into your terminal without having to specify the full path. Now, it doesn't give that command extra powers, right? It still needs to be an executable, and typically only you can actually, there's another one, /bin. But we can talk about that later more if you want. So yeah, if I say cd home, so I was in a different directory, and I can say cd home, and now I'm back home. What this did is actually, before executing the command, since I had a variable here, this evaluated the output of this command. Any quick questions? And I'll be moving right along. Let me see how much time. I really want to go into scripting a bit. Okay. So we'll talk about what are called backticks and the order in which we evaluate things. But let's forget about backticks for now. Just go to substitution in the shell. So there is another command called date. Right, it gives you the current system date. By the way, again, side note, for most commands, you can do man, which is called, it's short for manual, date, okay? And that will give you information about the parameters to that command or executable. You can page up and down, you can hit Q to quit. It says so at the bottom of your screen. So I know that, from some experience that I generally use dates, for example, to create a, I want to rename a file based on the date, or I want to create a backup based on a date. So let's do this. Since this is a really bad format for a date for me to use in a file name, and by the way, please do not use spaces in file names, like ever. I mean, there's no reason for you to ever use space in a file name. Please don't do that. It will really make your life, a lot easier if you do not use spaces in files ever. So I can format the date slightly different. I'm not going to go over the different, formatting strings, but you can find all of these in that manual. So I'm going to say date, then I want the year, and I want the month, the small m, and then I want the D. So now I get the date, 2021, 02, 16. And what I can do is I can take that and put that into a variable. I can say today is, then I'm going to use this syntax. It means evaluate what is in these parentheses and use the output here. So
What
if
does
I just
the dollar sign mean?
Come again, please.
The dollar sign.
Just assume that this is part of the syntax. Okay. There are two ways to type this in. One way is to use the special quote, is a backtick. Please don't use this. Forget I even showed it to you if you haven't seen that before. Just use this. This is just a way to tell the shell, just take whatever's in here. The parentheses alone is not enough, right? That's actually means something totally different. If you want to execute this and take the output, you use this. By the way, do not use spaces around equal sign, right? That doesn't work. So if I do this, what this has done is evaluate this and put it in a variable called today. And I can output that variable like this. By the way, shell also autocompletes, our shell here, autocompletes variable names as well, also very useful. So right now, today contains this, this number. And I can use that because I can, let's say, I have this file that I created earlier, right? Say I want a backup of this file. What I can do is I want to copy this file again. Now, but I want it to be called backup underscore, and then I'm going to use today. And I thought there was a question.
No, there isn't. Carry on.
No, there is, but
There is on Slack, I think.
I meant to say this, but I was just going to complicate things. No, it's when I evaluated, of course. It's not an alias, right? What you are referring to is an alias, is something totally different. That's not something I'm going to cover today. But what we have done here is this, is created a copy, a backup copy of our file. And we have appended today's date to it.
But haven't we messed up our extension now?
The extensions are something that has been inherited from the Windows world. It wasn't even really inherited, right? It was just a convention. Extensions mean nothing in a Linux, let's say, in this type of a machine setting. Maybe on your desktop, you can double click things and then the system will see, oh, it's really a .csv. And then, okay, what program is it assigned? Actually, that's a lot of this is immaterial here. Yes, it will mess up your extension. But also note, why would you need the extension here? This is a backup, which you shouldn't be editing anyway. I don't know if I answered your question. Basically, the extension here means absolutely nothing in any functional way on these types of systems.
Couldn't you just put like the backup today before the extension?
That is a good thing, and that brings me to exactly my next thing that I wanted to show you. Let's get rid of that backup. Okay. Oh, by the way, did we go over RM? We didn't. RM means remove. Okay. It's just a delete. Note, there is no, let's say, trash can in these systems, so there is no undelete. Actually, undelete is so impossible because when your actual file here that you created, it's split up among 300 to 400 different disks potentially. Okay, so there's no way, absolutely no way to retrieve that. So make sure you make copies of your data. Make sure you make offline copies of your data. Like if you're writing code, do not keep your code on the system. The system is not backed up. That is not its purpose in life. So back to creating a copy. Remember this. Let me move it up. Remember this. I don't have to save it in a direct, let's say in a variable first. I can just use that directly. So since I can do this, what that will do, oh, by the way, in many cases, when you're not sure about what your command is going to actually evaluate to, if you're doing, you can say at the beginning of your command echo, and then it will actually evaluate everything and say kind of what it's going to do. Just be careful though, because this will actually be executed. So if this is something destructive, echo will not save you. Anyway, so I will, it will actually execute this thing. So let's do that. And there it is. Quick note that I meant to mention earlier and forgot to. When you're outputting, when you're using variables, try to use this format rather than this. These are the same, okay? These are two ways of writing exactly the same thing. You say, why do you have these extra characters? This is needless. Try and get used to this. It will be a lot easier down the line if you just use this. It's a lot more important in scripts. And actually, it's I don't have enough time to go into the details, but yeah, try and get used to this. In my previous command, when I was doing this, if there was an say I wanted to, like somebody mentioned, actually this is important. Let me just go over it. If I wanted to say today underscore backup, let's do the echo thing again. What is wrong here? What is the rest of this? Anybody, any idea what went wrong?
probably thought there's a variable called today underscore backup.
There is or there isn't? But
Well, there isn't one.
but my variable is today.
So that's why I probably need the brackets.
That's that. So some characters, exactly, absolutely right. Some characters can be part of names, like environment variables. Some cannot. If I was doing this, actually, I would be okay. Good, valid as any. And then suddenly you change this to an underscore because you are really, using underscores, because we use that a lot to separate things in file names. Underscore is a very, it's like a space, because we don't use spaces, we use underscores. But underscore can be part of a variable name. So that's why just try and get used to using this format, which gives you the correct output. You can do a lot with this later on, but unfortunately, that's pretty advanced. Not for this session, actually. So you can use multiple of these replacements. So I can type something like this. What this does is evaluate who am I and evaluate date, and then output everything. If I was using this, note that I changed the double quote to a single quote. Why can I, what doesn't it highlight? There you go. Suddenly, this is no longer evaluated. This is now a literal. So any questions at this point? Because the next one, I'd like to go into scripting.
If you had used brackets instead of parentheses, what's the difference?
Like here?
Yeah.
That doesn't even do anything. This is very specific syntax. You have to use $, parentheses, and then a command in here, and then you close the parentheses, and that's it. A square bracket means something totally different, and it can mean many things in different scenarios. If you use something like today and then this, I'm not even sure that it works. Don't even forget about the square brackets for now, and it can mean anything from matching things from the regular expressions that we mentioned earlier to actually accessing, if today was an array, to access elements in an array, but we're not going to cover arrays in Bash.
I was comparing parentheses to curly brackets.
Sorry.
Should we stick to curly brackets for variables and parentheses for commands?
Yes, actually, there's only one way to do them. You cannot actually use one for the other. Use the curly braces for variables. Use the parentheses, like you said, to execute commands internally. So let me go over a few commands, and actually I want to, I don't have enough time to go over more commands. I wanted to go over things like du, which is how much, how much space a file is taking. I am not going to go into details. Oh my God, what did I do? Yeah. So this file is 1.5K. I wanted to go over PS and what permissions. I wanted to go over what's going right now right now in the system. But before we do that, I'd like to go. Let's do. We really need to go into writing shell script. Sorry. So remember when we said we wanted to on our first slide. Basically, scripts are basically commands that automate things, and we put all of those commands in a file, and then we execute them. We can have a very simple script. Let's do that. I'm going to use my editor. You can use whatever editor you want. And when we're going to call it, I don't want to call it test. I'm going to use the echo command in this script. So I'm going to just call it echo.sh. Generally, we want to put this .sh at the end to let other users know. The system couldn't care less, right? To let other users know that this is a shell script. So I'm opening that file. It is. I can just put echo here. Keep using double quotes, which is okay in this case, but let's not make a habit of it. I can invoke that script like this. It took whatever commands were in there, and it was executed. And I think I've skipped over something that I really wanted to go over. Yes, I did. More about variables and shells. But anyway, let's take a step back before we, do more about with this script. Let's do something more about with variables. I can simply set a variable like this, like I said already. And that's the value, which is the same as this. And then let's do another variable. And then I can, print those out. This is almost the same. Okay. So if I do this, it means it's just the same. Again, it's echo and it takes 2 parameters. If I do this though, now this is going to be evaluated first because of the double quotes, right? And it's really just 1 parameter to echo. Slight detail, just keep that in mind. Usually you won't have to worry about this, but sometimes it will come back and bite you. Note the single quotes again will just output this literal without evaluating what's in there. So we have this A equals 1 in my shell. And this is valid in my shell. If I exit and come back, this will no longer be 1, right? A will not be set. A will not be set if I in a subshell as well. What is a subshell? So if I just do echo A here, and I just start a new shell, I can say bash, and now I have a new shell. Now I'm in a a new bubble inside of my previous bubble of a bash shell. In this new bubble, A is no longer defined. I can redefine it, of course, set it to 2. And say, but when I exit, and by the way, I can exit my shell by typing exit or hitting Control D. And then I echo A again. 2 was only, A was 2 only in that subshell, in that bubble inside the bubble. Most of you are, some have done some sort of coding. So in the past, so I guess you can get this, the modularity of this, right? Any questions before actually, let's skip questions for another 10 minutes because that's what we have. And I really want to go over at least a simple script. What was my script? Echo. Now, let me do another script. Let's do loop.sh. We're going to use this to, both create a shell script, make it executable, but also show the context of loops, which is not the purpose of this session, but why not? I think I have a copy of this somewhere. Let's do this. This is almost recognizable for most of you. This is it's a for loop with iterations of going from 1 to 10. This is sort of a C style syntax. Just go with this, okay? Don't worry too much about how you create a loop like this. You will always be able to look it up. Right? There are many ways to do for loops and generally loops, but also many ways to do for loops in Bash. So let's not worry too much about that. So let's just run that. Simple enough. But since I don't want to keep saying Bash, so if I just say loop, oh, I says command not found. Of course, it's not found because it's not in one of the predetermined places in the in my path variable. Remember this. It's not in any of those, right? Actually, there's two things wrong with it, but one of them is that it's not in one of those. That I can kind of go over by specifying the path. So I can do // which means in my current directory, and then this file. Now it knows where to find it, but there's another thing. There's another problem with it. Okay, actually there's 3 problems with it, but anyway. It says permission denied, and that is because it's not unexecutable. Not only that, it doesn't really know how to execute it. I just gave it a file with a bunch of lines in it. I didn't say, how to execute those lines. So what we're going to do now is tell it what this is. And we say what this is by doing this. That's called a shebang, okay? And then we say bin/bash. All this is saying is, I want you to use this interpreter, okay, to run these commands. I'm saying this is a bash script. This could have been a Python script, and there are ways to say that, oh, this is a Python script. So now it knows that it is a shell script, but it's still not executable. And to make it executable, I will have to introduce another command. It's called change mod. I want you to make it executable, this loop.sh. So let's take a look. This is loop.sh. I really wanted to go over permissions, but I don't think.
Because if you want, we can go 15 more minutes. So end at 12:15 if you want.
Yes. Okay. Let me cover the you know what. Let's just let me do this, and then I can give a quick crash course on permissions, because all of these things are just. Let me take a step back, because this session is meant not to be like a full tutorial. This is meant to introduce people to these different ideas, to know what things are, you know, available, and just to, it's like almost like a primer, right? Once you know that there are such things as permissions, then you can look them up. I mean, you don't have to remember what each one of these numbers are. I mean, it's really easy, and I can explain it to you. I was actually planning to, but I don't have to. Now that you know that these are permissions, and then you can look into, just type in Linux file permissions, you will find 150,000 YouTube videos and a million, you know, posts online explaining what those are. So let me just finish my, well, all you need to know for now is that I made this, I set this flag, I made it executable. Why can I not select this? Anyway, there you go. I just set this flag, now it's executable. Actually, I set it on all, you know, 3 of them. Anyway, so if I just do this now, it's executable. It knows how to execute it, and I'm specifying the path. Now it runs. And that was the first, you know, bash script. This is it. And any questions? I'd rather take questions actually now than you know, go for another 15 minutes. I will be around, by the way.
So what we'll do, we'll find a good tutorial online on permissions and post it on Slack for you to look at, because as George said, yes, it is easy for you to read and understand yourselves.
I can quickly go over them now if we have no questions. Right now, I can just go over ownerships and permissions. They kind of go together. No question. Cool. Let's talk about ownerships and permissions. Remember when I did this and I told you, oh, these are the files, and then don't worry about, you know, too much about these things. Or maybe I didn't, doesn't matter. Let's do it again. By the way, note this LH at the end and compare it with this. H, you can find this -H, which is also the same as this, by the way. Single letter arguments generally in well-written programs, they can be used together. You don't have to keep having to say space minus space minus. So this is the same as this, right? So H makes it, it instructs the executable ls to give you more human readable output. So what it really does is change, instead of giving you bytes, I will make it into K. doesn't look, like much now, but if this was like a terabyte, this will be indistinguishable with, I don't know, 9 digits, 10 digits, or whatever. It makes it a lot more readable. So, but what I really wanted to show you is that the the ownership of this file. You can see that this one is the owner, and that's my account here that I created for this tutorial. And this is a group, because I created, as a system administrator, I created a group. And I added all of these people in that group. If I say ID, and then actually don't even have to specify if I'm doing ID. That will give me my actual numeric user ID for the system, which group I belong to, and which is my primary group, and what other groups I belong to as well. Again, since this is not a system administration, tutorial, I'm not going to go too much into this, but it is very well possible that you can belong to more than one group. In fact, if you went in and applied now and you still had this account and we decided for you to keep this account, which you wouldn't, but anyway, you could be added to another group. Now, groups, as the name implies, are there for systems to allow users to safely share data, right? So if you make a file readable by your group, then they can all access it as long as they're in their group. And this is where this come in. Let me take an example. So each one of these is 7 bits. Which one? This one. This is 7 bits. By the way, raise of hands, who is not computer science? A lot of you, I guess. Yeah. Oh, okay. A lot of people are not computer science, of course. I don't know why I would think that. Anyway, so these 3 first refer to your own permissions on the file. This means that I can read it and then I can write it. This is there to tell the system whether this is executable. For example, if we go back to the file that we just created, it's readable by me. So I can say cat and then this file. There you go. I can write it because I edited it. I can, you just saw me do it. It's executable because I can do this, and it works. And these are the permissions of that file for me. This refers to the owner, these first 3 letters. Forget about the first letter. Right? These 3 refer to people in my group, people in this group. So if somebody belongs to this group, which is all of you actually, right now for this tutorial, you can probably access this file in my account because I have it, we have the read permission on it for people in my group. They can execute it as well, but they cannot write it. The third byte is actually refers to others. Okay. Sorry, apologies. The third one refers to others. So it's user, group, others. You'll notice that it's readable and executable, but not writable by others. And to close this off, if I want to change the directories, the permissions of a directory or a file, I can simply say, you can translate these to bytes and bits, but I'll show you another way. As I said, you can find information for that online, or ask me later on how you actually calculate this, because this actually refers to, this is 644. This would be 644 for this. So this would be the same. Don't worry about how I came up with that. Actually, I haven't changed it. I can modify it further by making it also writable by my group, like this. Now it's writable, but there are better ways. I can say, so let's go back to what it was. Sorry. I can say change mode. And then I want others in my group to have write access, and that's it. And it's a much more readable way of doing this. Plus, you don't have to know its previous state, right? You can just say, whatever it is, I just want you to add this. So, stick to this when adding permissions. Any questions? I think this is a good place to. Big question. Can we visualize data in Cyclone? Yes. Any other questions? I'm just joking. There are many, many ways to visualize data. Actually, a very nice way of visualizing data was shown yesterday, and using Jupyter notebooks. And if we get time, and if I speed up and get my act together and speed up in the afternoon session, maybe we can look into that a bit rather than spending too much time going into let's say scripting. Any questions?
Michael asks what GNW is.
That means for the group, add the right permission. That's what that means. For the group, add right permission.
Maybe one question before the break. Are you all in Slack? If there is someone not in Slack, please raise your hands. Because we're thinking to close the chat in Zoom and just stick to Slack, because all the chat in Zoom will disappear after we end the session.
Yes, you're actually right. Yeah.
And we would like to keep everything there for you, because Slack will be alive forever after this event, so you can find answers in there whenever you visit Slack, and you can find us also in Slack. I will send the link again, and then maybe we can close the Zoom
please
chat.
Do that. Actually, it would be a win if we actually get people involved with Slack, because that's where you can do a first question when you don't know what to search. Somebody will always get to you. There is one question in Slack on how this quota is calculated. Should we be using DUSH, which means just show me unhumable? What's the B in? Yeah, parent size. No, Coda is actually using not a parent size, actual disk usage. In fact, most of your data, not in your home directory, but the other data is all compressed. So yeah. So another good question for exercise 4, I don't have any permission to modify JavaScript.sh unless you know how to really, the question is, can I copy it to home? I asked it because it was said the examine folder. Yes, I just wanted you to deduce that you had to copy it. So good, Ronnie. But that's for later, right? That's for this afternoon because you don't know how to submit yet. I mean, you might know, but how you would specify a file is to be executed by Python. That is a bit more involved. And okay, since by the way, this is slightly more involved. I guess we can do the break now, and anybody who is interested in this question can stick around. I'm going to go over the question now because this is not really part of. Actually, I had it in my notes but anyway, consider it an official break now. If you want to stick around for these extra questions, feel free to. Right now, I'm going to show how you would make a Python script executable.
Okay, hold on, George.
Yes.
So let's say you're on lunch break, and we resume at 1:30 for whoever wants to go out and then return.
Still it's
by
1:30.
Yeah, isn't it?
Until
3.
I thought it was 2 to 3:30. But that's good. That's good. I'm good either way.
So yeah, I'm going to stop recording for now and talk later.
So on to how you would make a Python